of the budget. Of course, the debt service is 100%. Tourism reflects 46% of revenue collected and 56% of expenditures. Your transient occupancy taxes still continue to decline even with increased collection enforcement. The expenditures are well below the 75% threshold. Most revenue sources appear to be steady, except for the sales tax and meals tax, and I believe the sales tax will come back up. The collection efforts continue to be increased, as Ms. Curran referred to, personal property, which includes your vehicle license revenues. Your public service taxes are estimated to be slightly less in the next 3 months due to the increased sales tax ratio. We're hoping that's going to be changed, but that's what we're currently hearing. And we continue to monitor expenses and revenues. Other than that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right, questions for Mrs. Hatcher at this time? Mr. Black?
Yeah, I just got one. It's actually comes from your conclusion. Looking at the numbers that we got, I see the delinquent personal property. We have talked about delinquent real estate before, but and then in the conclusion, okay, I see collection efforts are being increased for the personal property taxes. What does that mean? What are we doing to collection efforts are being increased? What exactly is
that? Is a question for Ms. Curran because she handles all the collections. I know that they are doing this debt set off, the DMV stops. Other than that, I can't tell you. I really don't know.
Thank you for coming forward, Mrs. Curran. That's okay.
The DMV stops. We're doing the debt set-off. We've sent claims for everything that was delinquent as of December 31st. We've sent final notices in February that were due in March, and we're trying to follow up with doing the steps that the DMV. We've issued summons to some of the businesses that we can't get any other way to come into our office and bring their tax returns and bank statements and see if we can't work out payment plans with them. And we've got wage liens and bank liens going on, but just trying to find folks sometimes is.
Now is all this stuff, all these efforts, brand new? Like, if they just started in the last month, couple months? Or?
No, we've been trying. This is the first year that we've actually sent out a delinquent notice to every single delinquent account. I mean, normally we would go through and just try to target a certain, like the high dollar ones or the ones that we'd already gotten through state income that we knew where their address was. But there are a lot of delinquent accounts. And
are we seeing fruits from this? I mean, are we seeing increased revenue because of this?
There is the payment we got from debt set off in April was significantly higher than we had in past years, and we're also now adding the $30 admin fee on, which has caused we've gotten significantly more than was budgeted, and we'll try to help on that next year as well, because it is more work, so we're going to charge the extra $30 admin fee, and we've done over 2,000 debt set-off letters.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Seeley?
Mr. Chairman, I guess my questions, I'm looking at future budgets, and is the transient, is the B-poll numbers that we have here, these are our totals for the year that you have in this report?
No, I don't believe so.
So so the cash basis total March is just what we've collected so far this year?
Yes, sir.
And the same thing with the machine tools then, same numbers?
The machinery and tools are billed. They're billed just like personal property, so the second half bills just went out on those, on the machinery and tools.
Can I get a total accounting of those two for what we have budgeted for the year, what we've collected the last 2 or 3?
For B-poll
And machine tools.
Two years, 3 years?
3?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Seeley. Mr. Underwood? Mr. Akers?
No, sir.
Taylor? No. Okay. Ms. Hatcher, just a couple quick ones. You said the water master plan was on hold. I guess that's not really your call. I need to ask Mr. Shebel. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Okay. Would it be possible for you in 3 weeks or whatever, the end of May, if you could give us an accurate, up-to-date number of everybody's budget? Is that possible? In other words, what I want is, with 1 month to go, how much is left in each budget? And I'll take ballpark numbers. So at our next meeting on the 28th, just say, okay, there's a month to go in the fiscal year. How much is left in everybody's budget? Because I know you've just done the third quarter report. 75%, is where we should be if all things were equal. I just want to be able to track what happens the last month of the fiscal year.
I'll be glad to do that, but keep in mind that at the end of the fiscal year, we don't get a lot of our bills until July, and then they get backed in.
That's what I want to see. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Expenditures only? Just
Expenditures for us. Yeah.
okay, no problem.
We can match that up. That'll be fine.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, we've got appointments. That was it. Any questions, Mr. Underwood?
No, I was just the actual expenditures for next month that you asked.
Right. Well,
Year.
really what I want is to know,
What's left?
at the 11th month, how much money is left in each department's budget.
That's not counting the accruals that you know that.
Yeah,
So
all that'll be accounting. I mean, we can take all we can get, because they're going to, I'm sure,
Right.
the county administrator may say, oh, I need to buy whatever, and that bill will go out, or that request for purchase go out. We won't see the bill until after May.
That's what I wanted to.
Yeah. But I just want to kind of see where we are at the end of the month close.
The item,
Right.
maybe not, but just like, perhaps that.
We're kind of saying we hope not. That's kind of where we want to be. Okay, we've got appointments. What do I have? Do we ever have anybody for the Rappahannock EMS? Mr. Seeley, I thought
I
you were.
do not.
Okay. All right, we need to do something. We do have the Rappahannock Area Community Services Board. Staff has said Mrs. Day, wishes to be reappointed. Ms. Day is in whose district? I don't see that. Ms. Day is in your district? Hmm? She's in Bowling Green? Okay. All right, doesn't matter. I was just curious. She wants to be reappointed. Is there a motion to reappoint her?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to reappoint. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Akers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. And our next one is the Recreation Advisory Board. All these terms expire on June 30th, so this is just a warning from Mr. Howard. That everybody's district is there, so they've all said they're willing to be reappointed if that's the board desire to reappoint them. If you want to reappoint them now, that's fine. If you want to wait till June, that's fine. You want to hear from Mr. Howard?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Howard's in the audience, but we wouldn't want to hear from him now.
Right.
Okay, we'll pass this over until the 28th, and then we'll make those appointments the 28th to make sure there's a smooth transition. All righty, that takes us to the consent agenda. Any board member have any item they would like to have removed from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Black?
I would like to pull E, F, and L from the consent agenda, please.
E, F, and L. Anybody else want to pull anything? Okay,
Mr. Chairman, if the motion is in order,
that would most
I
certainly.
would move that we approve consent agenda items A, B, C, D, G, H, I, J, and K.
Is there a second? Second. Motion made by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Akers, to approve consent agenda items A through D, G, H, I, J, K, and J, K. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item E, Mr. Black, you're first.
Yeah, I don't know if there's someone that can answer. I just have a quick, these are basically just questions that I need clarified, so if there's someone that can speak to.
Want to do questions now? I think that's a good time. Another board member had asked about, this was the first time they'd ever seen it, so we might want to postpone it so we can have a chance to read it, but feel free to ask your question.
All right, on agenda, letter E, it was the whistleblower. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, where it says if someone comes up with, says as far as may remain unidentified, if someone is a whistleblower in the county of something dealing with fraud, they have every right to remain unidentified, correct? I mean, I just wanted a clarification on that. They will not be identified, correct? The wording in that says may, and should we change it to shall, or?
The may is always optional. I would think may mean it could.
They can always testify now. They can videotape them testifying to that
Yeah.
and on the court. Individuals.
But his point is right, though. If I'm going to be identified somehow as the whistleblower,
Right.
I don't necessarily want you to automatically say it's me
Right.
or
And-
have that option.
And may doesn't ever imply shall.
Right, right. And there's a difference, shall, will. That's why we're having Mr. Emerson review that. Where is it, Jeff, exactly in yours? Mr. Black? Where exactly did you
I was
find may?
surprised this was in consent.
I looked on, well, I had it highlighted. Well, I can't find it now. Oh, it's on, I guess it's under, yeah, it's on page, under reporting procedures. Under reporting procedures, third line down.
Okay. Yeah, it's really our first reading. You have more questions?
No, I mean, that's it for that one.
All right, let's do this, because
Table it.
yeah, I think if anybody who has questions, and there's some of us, myself definitely included, who haven't had a chance to read it thoroughly,
Right.
since it's our first chance seeing it, we'll keep that off, give us a chance to review, and in the meantime, we'll send all questions directly to the county administrator
Okay.
so that they can be answered and it can be back on consent
Okay.
at our next meeting.
Sure.
Okay? All right, so that'll take care of E. You want to do F? You can find that later. F,
Yeah.
Mr. Black?
On F, I was just kind of curious on how large that tract of land is. Maybe I overlooked it, the number of acreage.
184 acres? 184 acres.
Do we have any estimation on revenue on that, Joey? So do we know, like, when we'll have a more clear picture, or is there going to be a time frame we'll have a more clear picture? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cully would like to add one thing.
With that, there was a request from the schools to put a trail in there once we selectively
Right, I saw
clear.
that.
You
I saw that.
so that if you
Yeah.
approve that, I'm going
I saw that.
to tell them they can plan on that. They don't know where they're going to put it, and I don't know where we're going to cut the trees down yet until we get it cruised, but they didn't want to be planning for it if y'all weren't in favor of it, and that it's our property.
Okay, thank you. That takes,
All right, so we are going to go forward with F? Is that our determination?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I just want.
And then we have L, clarification of fire and rescue
I
training
just,
standards.
yeah, the only question I have, maybe Chief Loftus can, he's here. Yeah, okay, there. The only thing I had a question of, and maybe I didn't read it, is where it says some grandfathering. you know, the term some grandfathering. I was just kind of curious on that. What is the some grandfathering? What is not some grandfathering?
Some grandfathering for that period of time. There are some required courses that they must take that we don't require locally. NIMS 100, 200, 300 are required under a presidential directive. Infectious control for people is occupational hazard, and that's required under OSHA. So that would be required of all people, regardless of their tenure within the department. So those aren't local, but those are the larger implications for some grandfathering.
Okay, I was just kind of, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Underwood?
Chief Loftus, have the volunteers gone through this yet?
They got it last Wednesday from their command staff. That was given to them. This is really what the board came up with as far as changing policy as far as
Right.
volunteer training standards.
I
So
understand that. I'm just wondering, have they been able to go through it, digest it, feel it, touch it, make sure they're in agreement with it?
not for that period of time, no.
Well, then, okay. My next question is, if I wanted to go to be a volunteer, and all I wanted to do was wash the fire trucks when they return, or fold the hoses, and give those guys a break, do I have to go through training also in order to be a volunteer?
If you're going to be just a non-operational volunteer, there is a support portion that you can be a volunteer, both on the administrative side of the department or the fundraising side of the department. If you just
Right.
want to come in and assist them through fundraising, we call that non-operational volunteer.
Right.
And they would still be eligible for the stipend and a few other things as long as they met the requirements.
Because I talked to a couple of volunteers, I don't think they really understood that people could come in and do non-operational work in the fire.
I would ask them
Without
to
going the-
speak
so
with their
that
district
might be
chief.
well, I spoke to a couple, that's why. I didn't want to say that, okay.
And we, Mr. Underwood, we also have lifetime volunteers that
Right.
have been in for a long time. They're still members of the department. We still give them incentives, but they're not functionally operating on the fire ground.
Thank you.
Okay, I was along the same lines as you, and I think another board member said the same thing. You said this was the board's changes,
Correct.
and I was there at the meeting. Actually, Mr. Seeley and I met with several volunteer groups. We took their input, brought it back to the board. So I think maybe we should make sure that what the board's interpretation was what the volunteers were looking for. So we're going to wait on this one until you can confirm that the volunteers have at least seen it, the majority like it, or want to move forward. We want to make sure that, you know, we do what they've asked us to do, rather than it looks like we said this is the new thing.
If not, why not?
Right.
If there's things they don't like, we need to know
Okay.
why not.
I'll certainly
We can
forward
do it
any input
and
they do.
Enhance it, I mean, that's our responsibility.
And then we can do this on the 28th too. That'll give you a couple of weeks from today to just have a meeting with the volunteers, or when you're regular scheduled, and then say, this is it, just want to make sure, and then we'll move on. Okay?
That's fine.
Thank you, Chief.
All right.
All right, so we're gonna bring agenda item E and L back on the 28th, and we need a motion to approve agenda item F, which is the bids for Forrester Consulting Service.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Black, to approve consent agenda item F. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. That takes us to closed meeting. Okay. All right. I need a motion to move to the board convene and close the meeting pursuant to the consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff, exemption, section 2.23711A7 of the Code of Virginia, and the public contract exemption, section 2.23711A29 of the Code, to discuss specific legal matters requiring provision of legal advice by counsel involving the county negotiation, involving the Public Procurement Act and the county negotiation of contract for narrowbanding the county's communications system, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position of the county. Is there a motion to that effect, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second? Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. The board will convene in the room next door and close meeting. You ready? Okay. We will reconvene the May 14th meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Let me first apologize to all those who were in attendance. At 7:30 is when we normally were supposed to start our public comment. Unfortunately, we had a closed meeting that had quite a bit of detail and quite a bit of information we had to pass around, so it ran late. Again, I apologize for that lateness, and we are going to make sure we hear everybody as far as our public comment. So before we start that, we need a motion to come out of closed session.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to come out of closed session.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Black. Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Mr. Black, do you certify that only those things we went into closed meeting were discussed?
I so certify.
Mr. Seeley, do you certify?
Mr. Chairman, I so certify.
Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Chairman, I so certify.
Mr. Akers?
I so certify.
Mr. Taylor?
I so certify.
And I so certify. So we've taken care of the closed meeting. We will now go to our 7:30 public comment section. Our public comment section is for any citizen that would like to address the board. We try to make these public comments positive to move the county forward. So at this point, there's no sign-up sheet. I'm going to ask people if they would like to speak, if they would just come to the podium when the person ahead of them has finished. You will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. You should direct your comments to the chair. You should not make any personal comments. If you do, we will have to move to the next speaker. So we are willing to hear whatever anyone has to say and look forward to it. So on that point, I will declare the public comment section open. If you would like to speak, please come forward to the podium. If you'd like, you can line up in the front row if you'd like to be next. Major Mosier, as always, good to see you, sir.
I see you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I come before you today to talk about the radio system. My name is Scott Mosier, and I'm from the Bowling Green District. I have had the honor and the pleasure to serve on the committee for the last 2 years investigating the radio project. During that committee, I've learned more than I probably care to ever know about the radio system. But I can tell you it was truly an honor to see this county join forces as we did for this project. We came together in a collaborative effort, the schools, we had the Public Works, the Sheriff's Office, Fire and Rescue, the County Administrator, he was there as well, and the consultant that this board had the knowledge and wisdom to put in with us to make the proper decision for this radio project. We investigated and looked into every possibility that we could to better serve the citizens of Caroline. And I say this from my heart that this has probably been one of the most rewarding committees I've ever been on, when you have an opportunity to make a difference in so many lives in this county, as that committee gave me that opportunity. And when I say lives, that's exactly what I'm talking about. We have come to a conclusion that the Motorola radio system is the best option for Caroline County. We looked at joining Spotsylvania. We looked at joining Hanover. Mr. Cully did a wonderful presentation for the board and showed what a tremendous extra burden, financial burden, that would cost the county. Not only the burden it would cost the county of not having the ability to make the proper decision on what program we should go to or what stage of the radio system we should go to. In my career in 25 years, this has probably been one of the most important things I've done. And I feel that our recommendation to go with Motorola is the best solution, not only to save the citizens and the people passing through the citizens, but all the fire and rescue people to help save their lives. We have a tremendous deficit in our system now. The reliability of the system, you all know the numbers. 82% right now, 42% for a portable. It's just unacceptable when the standard industry is 95%. The proposal that we presented to you, along with Dave Muniz, your consultant, we feel is the best option for Caroline County. I can't tell you how proud I've been to be able to make that recommendation when we were given the task in the very beginning to come up with a long-term solution for the best thing for Caroline County. I've been here a number of years, like I said, 25 years serving the public, and that's a welcome mission statement. For so many years, we put Band-Aids on issues in the county. I just hope that you'll take our recommendation, along with the consultant, and you'll pass this project, because I really do think it will save lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sorry I wasn't clear. You can step forward. When you come to speak, please state your name and what magisterial district you're from. If you're not from the county, then just tell us where you're from. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Mark Farrow with the Madison District. I'll make it 3 minutes. Here we go. The county doesn't have access to sufficient public safety frequencies. If there's a fire, police action, or an ambulance call while school is getting out, emergency workers will be sharing frequency with school bus drivers. If you don't believe me, go down to dispatch and listen to everyone talking over each other right now when school gets out. It's a matter of who pushes their button first or who releases it last. You hear half sentences, static, people talking over each other. Not to mention the 42% coverage that Major Mosier talked about. That means that half the time we don't know if our kids are safe, if our house is burning, if the police are going to catch the bad guy who robbed us. Never mind if there's a state, national, or county emergency. At that point, only the Mattapanai will be able to communicate. First responders can call if they have a cell phone signal and patch things through or relay messages, but both of those options take time that the police, fire, and EMS units often don't have during emergencies. Loss of time is not only a concern, is not the only concern, because anytime you have to relay something, you lose something in the translation. Now, I don't know if anyone's been hurt or if a house is burned or if a criminal has got away because of lack of communication or miscommunication. But is that what we're waiting for? If so, I think that everyone should take note of who votes against the new system so that we can have them call you when that time comes. So far, we've been lucky, but it's not a matter of if something bad is going to happen, but when. In many parts of the United States, the failure of localities to upgrade their systems has caused deaths and injuries. Firefighters have died in buildings because radios have malfunctioned, and police have been shot and lay in agony as minutes have passed away and they could not get help from the radio calls. Given the potential of the bad outcomes when emergency radio systems don't work properly, why is the county still using an old, flawed system, and half of the gentleman here proposing to throw good money after bad? A poor radio system affects how public safety services do business, and we can't afford, as Major Moser said, to put a Band-Aid on an old system and hope it works for another few years. Here are some really quick facts, and I'll close in case no one was listening. Our system was put in 1983. I had a cassette Walkman. Cell phones were non-existent. Al Gore had not invented the internet. Mr. Marshall was still in high school. I could pull down that tower over there, which is a single point of failure, with my Ford Taurus and a rope. And recently, a storm knocked off the antenna. Now, I know it'll cost twice as much to put duct tape on our current system. It'll cost twice as much to put in a new system as it will to put duct tape on the current one. But in our nation, the justice system considers human life priceless. I.e., humans can't be bought or sold for any price. However, with the limited supply of resources that we have in infrastructure capital, it is impossible to save every life, so a trade-off must be made. There is no standard concept for the value of specific human life in economics. However, when looking at the risk-reward trade-offs that people make with regard to health, economists often consider the value of a statistical life, or
You
the
could
VSL.
summarize, please.
Yes, I will, right here. The VSL for the Environmental Protection Agency is $6.9 million. Food and drug, $7.9. Transportation, $6 million. I would like to know what the VSL, or the value of a statistical life, is for the board. If it were me, and I were in your shoes, Mr. Chairman, it would be $6,507,568. Thanks.
Thank you. Next person.
Evening. My name is Jack Creasy. I live in Landor, Jeff Black's area, and I've written some things to him and to Mr. Colley about my problem here, so you may already be familiar with some of it. I'll just read a quick statement, try to summarize it. When my wife and I moved to Caroline County 6 years ago, we found many charming things. One of them was the Ladysmith Convenience Center, where we could take our trash and throwaways at no cost. Even better, we could pick up a lot of very useful things for our house and especially our yard. I got some very valuable things for me, such as fence posts, fencing, a lawn cart, bicycles, a scooter for our grandkids, a wagon, spare wheels, and other spare parts, and a host of other useful things. That changed this summer when the center started enforcing their no scavenging rule, which applied to ordinary citizens, private citizens, as well as commercial scrap dealers. The purpose, I gather, was to keep these things for the county to sell to add to county revenue. I'm an ardent recycler, and I like to reduce my taxes, so I approve of this idea in principle. But in practice, it severely restricts the ability of private citizens to enrich their lives by discovering treasures from trash that might add a lot of good, useful things to their lives. The board seemed to recognize this by providing for a, quote, too good to throw away area in each convenience center. The problem to me is that the items have to be put there by the people who bring them or by the center personnel. The people who want to use the things from the center have no voice in what they might find useful for them and what they are allowed to take. Mr. Cully was kind enough to send me a copy of the rules of the center. Frankly, I find them very confusing and open to varying interpretations, especially as to what constitutes recyclables and scrap metal, which is critical as to what private individuals are allowed and not allowed to take. To me, the overall intent seems to be both to reserve scrap sales for county revenue, but also allow private citizens to take things that will be useful to them. The problem lies in defining what is useful to a particular individual and things that will not be useful to them. The problem lies in defining useful in terms of deciding what is recyclable and what is not, and what is only valuable as shredded or melted down raw material for remanufacture. To me, a fence post or a discarded piece of exercise equipment may be very useful, even if it is not deemed too good to throw away by others. The effort to serve both the county and the individual citizen resulted in a tangle of confusing and sometimes conflicting definitions and interpretations in the convenience site operating manual. My suggestion, and I hope the board will consider it, is simply to make the following changes and additions in order to serve the interest of both the county and the individual citizen. Now, I don't know, I may have used my 3 minutes. It would take maybe 2 minutes more to read my proposals.
Why don't you, and yes, Mr. Creasy, you did exceed your 3 minutes, but why don't you give your written comments to Mr. Parton, who's right next to you, and he'll pass those to the board.
Okay, so these proposed amendments that I have, I have copies here for everyone if they would like to have them.
If you'll just give those to Mr. Parton, he'll pass those on, and we will definitely be in touch with you again because I think we've tried to do this before, and for whatever reason it's not quite right, but we're going to keep working on it. So
Thank
you'll
you
pass
so
those
much.
to Mr. Parton, appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You can just yell 3 minutes are up, because I was looking over here. I didn't even see.
Good evening, Richard Clark, Madison District, represented by Mr. Akers.
Mr. Clark, how are you?
I'm well, sir. I'm
Good.
here to address narrowbanding, if I may, sir.
You may.
HD 000002069335. That is the formal case I opened last week with the FCC about your failure to fund something that's 21 years old. You're now in a 6-month period. You have 45 days left to get it done. They have certain requirements. You're far more familiar than I am. But if you don't get it done, I will be telling them tomorrow to please not give you any more waivers, to fine you. And the fine is $16,000 per wideband radio in operation. That means $112,000, or excuse me, $112,500 per day that you might have to pay if you have a wideband radio operating. I hope that instead that I can tell them, hey, support Caroline County. It made the right decision. It has a plan. Let them do what they need to do and give them a hand. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate
Thank you, sir. Next person.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Board. I'm J.D. Satterwhite, Mattaponi District. I come here tonight as a citizen and also the supervisor of transportation for the school system. I'm not here as a representative for the school board. I'm speaking on my behalf. I am tasked to transport approximately 3,900 students in this school system. And we rely very much on this radio system. We have buses in areas that once they get in a certain part of the county, we can't reach them. We have concerns. I jump in my vehicle, got to get halfway there to get contact, keep calling them on the radio until I get to where I can get to talk to them and transport in the middle. But that's time that's not there sometimes. I have special needs transportation, children with multiple health issues that are riding in cars. Mr. Underwood's been in the school system, he knows. I think all y'all know. Multiple health issues. They have sometimes minutes. If that radio does not key up, dispatch cannot copy us or, hear what we need. I rely on the sheriff's department and also fire and rescue. They don't rely on me as much as I rely on them. I'm like Mr. Mosier. I had the privilege of sitting in on this committee, and I really thank y'all for giving me that opportunity. It was a great bunch of guys that their main goal was to have the best for Caroline County. I feel that we need this Motorola system. I know times are tight. Sometimes we need to buckle our belts, and I'm going to leave you with one last thing, if I can, Mr. Thomas. I feel it's time for Caroline County, like I heard a couple talking tonight, we need to stand up and be big boys. We don't need to be holding somebody's coattail. Let's do what's best for Caroline County, not drag along behind Spotsylvania and Hanover. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker.
Hello, my name is Lisa Harvey. I'm from the Reedy Church District. Behind me is Debbie Schools. She's in the Bowling Green District. I work in the Caroline County 911 Center. I am the dispatch supervisor, and Debbie is one of the dispatchers also. We are the people on the other end of the radio that can't hear when one of our units needs us the most. We are the ones that is the voice to that one person that needs us the most, and we can't hear them. It is the most awfulest feeling in the world to sit there and try to figure out what a unit said, whether it's the school bus, a public works unit, a sheriff, and all you hear is broken radio traffic. I want to implore you to go with the decision that the consultant made. The county spent over $100,000 in his decision in helping us get a new radio system. Our old radio system is from the 80s. I want something that is where I can understand my deputies and understand my fire and rescue when they need us the most. And we are the voice. We are the people that are sitting in that room listening to them try to get us, and we can't. They can't get us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mr. Chairman and the board, I'm here kind of wearing two hats tonight. I'm Brian Marmaduke, President of the CCVEUO and President of Bowling Green Fire Department. Like others, I'm here to speak on the radio system for tonight. If we could see our way, and I'm like Mr. Satterwhite, I understand it's a lot of money and we've got other problems as far as money goes. But let's not spend money to put a patch on something that was made in 1983. I'd rather see us put money towards something that we know that's going to work and was, set forth by a committee which did a very good job. And on top of that, again, I know y'all have heard it a couple of times, but let's be Caroline County. Let's not be, King and Queen, Spotsylvania, Hanover, whoever else we're riding on a coattail. My Vice President, Jason Satterwhite, would like to have a few minutes too, and the fellows behind us is members of several other departments, mainly of Bowling Green, and we also have a couple members of Ladysmith here.
Mr. Chairman, Jason Satterwhite, Bowling Green District. I'm here as a 19-year volunteer with the Fire and Rescue. I also started in the 911 Center, where they're using pretty much the same radio system that I used back in 97, 98. Back then, we were well behind times on the radio system we had at the time, and here we are in 2013, and we're much, much further behind. All I ask is that y'all take the recommendation of the consultant that we paid tax dollars for, and that you take the advice of the well-rounded committee that was put together by you all. Like I said, everybody else, I want to echo what they said. Let's finally do something on our own. Not that we haven't before, but let's not ride on somebody else's coattail where we have to stand with their decisions. Let's make our own decisions and move forward. I understand the lifespan of this system could last us 15 to 20 years. Let's do something great tonight, guys, and I just ask you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you coming together as a group and having to speak. Thank you. Is there another speaker?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff. Robert Mitchell, I'm the district chief of Frog River Volunteer Fire Department from the Rita Church District. I would like, with the chairman's permission, just a show of hands of how many people here tonight is with our public safety that are here to show support for this new system that we could have. As y'all can see, y'all have agreed to hire a consultant, look at the best system we could have. We even had a committee to work on it. I would just like to ask that you take the recommendations of the committee and with the consultant that's already been paid and not put a Band-Aid on the system. And again, to stand on our own to get something that's going to last us 15 to 20 years. It is a bad feeling when you're out on an emergency scene, and I've had it happen to me many a time. You cannot hear an incoming call. You cannot transmit back to our dispatch center. And I'm sure that you have it along with Sheriff's Office, as well with Fire Rescue, the schools, and so forth. The system, like you said, has been in years, it's been well past due, but let's not just sit here and do nothing with it. Let's get something that we can be proud of as something will last us and not throw good money after bad. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And what would your name be, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I'm Max Roselle, and Mr. Underwood is my representative in the Reed Church District. And do appreciate the opportunity to talk to the board tonight. And I'm 51 years old, and I've been in fire and rescue and public safety since I was 16 years old. And I know these folks behind me very well, and I just hope that we can get to a point where we can have a very good radio system that these guys deserve. I was an original member of this committee, and it was a big job to tackle.